Alright, so today we're going to do two things. We're going to replace this three-way switch here because it is faulty, and that's the other part of this video, is how to know when your switch is faulty or no longer working correctly. So these two switches I replaced because I had similar issues. This is the cheapest three-way switch that Menards offers, and it obviously doesn't last long, and I've learned my lesson installing the cheapest outlets and switches from Menards. Now I only buy the most expensive and hopefully never have to change them again. So what happens is it starts to arc. The contacts in there must short out, and you can hear it kind of arcing or crackling in the switch. Let's see if we can pick that up. I can't get it to do it. I'll show you though what the lights are doing, and that's another telltale sign. Alright, so here is one of the lamps. Now I'm gonna just try to turn the switch off, and you'll see we got all sorts of crazy stuff going on. And sometimes you'll actually turn the switch on. Okay, so the switch is fully on, lights didn't come on. Now if I push up on the switch, it lights up. So, oh, now it went off. Oh, yeah. So it's an issue. And it's probably something you want to change so you don't end up with some sort of issue later on. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is get the power turned off from your breaker panel. Now, I know what you're thinking. We need to turn the power off for this circuit because that's what we're working on, correct? Yes. However, you're working in this box, and lesson learned, if you leave the power on to other circuits, if these two are on a different circuit, I'm not 100% sure, there is a good chance you may touch the side screws on this switch and you're going to short yourself out. Lesson learned. So we're going to turn the power off to everything. So I got the lights on in the living room here, and then all these lights are, I think that's on a different switch. I got these lights on here, and then if we pan up over there, I also have those recessed lights. So let's go down to the basement and see if I can get this the first go. Alright, so I made this list up a while ago when I was in the circuit panel here trying to figure stuff out because nothing was labeled. For some reason they didn't label anything. So I'm going to go through. This one says living room, attic, master bedroom TV outlet, and that's a 15 amp. And it looks like it's on 7, which would be this one here. So we're going to turn that one off. Dining room, 9, 15 amp. We're going to turn that one off. And what else was on that? I don't know. That might be it. I don't see anything else on here. Let's see if we got it. Family room 15. No, that's not it. Yeah, let's give it a go. All right. Looks like we got it here. It's completely dark. So what you should probably do now at this point is use your voltage meter and make sure that there's no voltage in there. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to work on getting this plate off. Alright, so there's our box. Here is the switch we need to replace. So according to what this looks like, this is a 15 amp three-way switch here. Next to that is a single one-way or two-way switch, whatever they call it. That is a 15 amp as well. And then this one over here is also the same thing, 15 amp. So let's take a look at the switch that I bought so we can just kind of compare. Alright, so I bought a commercial back and side wire 20 amp three-way switch. So it's only on 15 amps, but I went with a 20 amp switch just because it's heavy duty. It's listed as commercial, and we shouldn't have any issues with it arcing or anything like that. So let's open up the box and take a look. Alright, so if you look there up on the top, there it is, sort of. 20 amp. It's got it marked for top, and this one's red. I think the color has something to do with the type of switch it is, if it's a three-way or a two-way switch or whatever. But yeah, so that's what we're putting in. That switch here should give us 0 issues, hopefully for the life of the house. So we will break into this now. Alright, so if we look at this switch here, you'll see there's like a gold colored screw on the bottom here. And if we flip it over, we got gold up on right straight across, and then there's a black one here that's marked common. I'm not going to get into the whole like how a 3-way switch works, but if we look at the new switch here, it's basically the same setup. We have a gold screw on the bottom, gold screw on the bottom. This one's not black, this one's kind of like a copper or brass colored. And it's in a different location than this one, it's just on the opposite side. Shouldn't matter though. So we'll pull the wires off of that and put the wires on a new one. Alright, so I got wired up, and now I'm kind of just taking the faceplate here and seeing if there needs to be some adjustment at the top. If you've ever changed switches before, you can kind of slide the switch over a little bit if it's not quite where it needs to be to get an even space on that plate. The other thing is, if you notice the wire colors on the switch and you're like, well, that's not right, those colors shouldn't be going, you shouldn't have a white wire going to whatever, it should have been a black. This house was built in 1968. 60s were a crazy time. I don't know that there were any codes, and if they were, I don't know that whoever built this house followed any of those codes or was a licensed electrician. That was before I was born. So I just go with the way it was wired up is the way it's going to get rewired up. They didn't have any of the switches grounded either. They grounded the box in the back. Again, I don't know if that's code. You know, you may want to look and see what current codes are, because obviously they change, and it's usually for safety reasons. But that's the way it was. So if you're doing previous wiring, new construction obviously is going to be different. But if you're doing something where you're changing out a switch, don't overthink it and say, well, that can't be the way they have it wired up. No, it could be. There's some other stuff in this house I've run into, and I was like, well, this can't be right. Don't change it. Just leave it as is. I learned that a couple times, actually a couple different places as well. Alright, I'm going to run down, go turn the power back on. Alright, looks like we're in business here. But before we get too carried away, just because the 3-way switch works at this outlet or location, it's always a good idea to check the other location, because you could have the wires goofed up, and if that was the case, when you turn this one on and off, it'll work fine, and if you turn it off and go and try to turn it on at the other location, it won't do anything. So we got the lights on right now. Let's walk over to the other location, and this may take me a bit because for some reason we have to have a ton of switches here. I think it's I think that's outside. I think it's this one. Okay, so we turned it off. Now we're going to walk back, and if we got it, it should come on over here. And there we go. So we're in business. We got it hooked up, and like I said, don't overthink it. Just follow the wires the way they were hooked up. These switches are a little bit louder. I'm fine with that. I don't have an issue with loud switches, because I know that there shouldn't be an issue, because those are heavy duty switches and they look heavy duty. They're like twice the width of the normal switch. So that's good. I know you can get quiet switches that aren't loud, but I'm fine with that. So that is going to be the install for the 3-way switch, and we got a double feature today. We're going to do one more. Alright, so this bank of switches is in the family room, and we have an outlet here that is a 4-way. Actually, I lied. This is a 3-way switch here, which controls outlets in the family room. This switch here is a 4-way switch, which controls kitchen lights. So if we zoom over here, turns kitchen lights on, and there's 3 locations. This one here is just a single, turns the family room light on and off. And then we have a dimmer switch, and that's what we're going after today. And I'm actually going to replace this dimmer just with a normal switch because I am sick of the dimmer switch and it not working. So that's on. Now if we look up to the dimmer, oh yeah, it's working good. And I know what you're saying. I turned it off, or I turned it down. Now I turned it on full. Come on. Oh. Nope, it's just not gonna go. So we're just gonna replace that with a normal switch, because when I do use this light, which is kind of an accent light that goes down to the fireplace here, when we do use the light, I usually have it on full blast because I need to see something. We usually don't use it for like mood lighting. So with this panel here, or this bank of switches again, so we got the family room, kitchen, family room. So we're going to want to make sure we get the family room off and the kitchen one off, because the kitchen one's hot. We shouldn't have any issue touching it, but we're just going to be in a safe and shut off hopefully everything that's in here. So we got lights on for everything. I'm going to go again, basement, and we'll turn those off. Alright, so there's our dimmer switch. That is an original dimmer that was put in, I'm guessing, back in the 60s. We got all our other power off. These aren't the heavy duty switches, but they've held up pretty well. I don't know that they are the cheapest ones either though. No, it looks like they could be. They're all 15 amp though. So we're going to get this out. I am using a gas Coleman lantern for my light source right now inside the house. Anyway, so we're going to get that dimmer switch out. We'll take a look at that. Alright, so the dimmer switch is just 2 black wires. It looks like they probably have them soldered back in here. So I'm probably just going to trim them off here and make the connection that way. Although this is probably braided wire, not solid copper. We'll see. But anyway, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says warranty expires October 1969. I guess we missed it by a little bit. So yeah, that's an original dimmer to the house. So that actually lasted pretty long, because that's, oh, I don't even know, what would it be, 50, is it 51 years? Is that right? Wow, that's pretty good, I guess. So let's chop that off and get going. Okay, so our dimmer switch had a black wire, which I'm going to believe goes to the light as our supply, and then it actually had a red wire that was connected to. Now the red wire comes from a bunch of wires further over here. Now I'm guessing because the lights in the family room are all on one circuit. If you recall, our kitchen outlet here, that was on a separate circuit, but the other 3, the family room, the other family room, and then the accent light, those were all on the same circuit. So what they probably did was bring a 3-wire up with a black and a red, and maybe they're sharing the hot. So in this case they're using this. I'm assuming this is going to be our hot wire, this is going to be our supply. The only reason that would be important is when you mount your switch, if you get those in the wrong orientation, you may have an issue with when you go to turn the switch on or off. It may be the opposite of what the switch says. So we'll have to check. But anyway, this wire here is too short, so I'm going to have to strip it down. I'll get a piece of black wire, we'll wire nut that on, and then pull it back behind these switches like it was. And then we can get to wiring up our new switch. Alright, so we got it wired in. I ran what I thought was the hot to the top screw, and then the bottom screw would be like your load. Maybe it doesn't matter. I thought at some point it did. Maybe I should try flip-flopping it just to see if it makes a difference. But the switch is in the on position. I got my wire nut back there. So, and again, remember, if someone says, oh, there's too many wires, too many connections in a box that size, you can't this, that, hey, 1968. That's my answer to all of that. There were no rules. If it fit, it worked. Let me go get the power on. looks like we got it. Alright, so it goes off, comes on, it's like it should. Well, that's good. I'm not 100% though, like I said, with the flip-flopping of the wires. I always thought that your hot wire comes in the top of the switch, your load is at the bottom. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I guess if yours is flip-flop where it says, when it says on, it's not actually on, it's off. And when it's off, it's on. If that makes sense. Probably need to flip-flop your wires. So let's get this wrapped up here. Alright, so there is our completed install of the three-way and our single switch replacing our dimmer. I would have went with a switch like this that dimmed, you know, a switch that looked like this that dimmed. They didn't have one though in this brown color, and it's like, you know what, for the amount of time that we actually use that, it's not worth the money to special order and wait for it. I'll just do this and that way it's done. So, interesting fact, I found out that your wealth was actually, back in the 60s, your wealth was determined by the number of switches you had in your house. So, it must have been a very wealthy house based on the fact that we have these banks of switches all over the house here. So, and garage, I should say. Yeah, garage. Actually, garage door in the garage, laundry room, here, kitchen, front room, and then dining room. Yeah, they like their switches. So, alright, that's going to be the completed install